Courtney Cronin joins us on the Yingling Guest Hotline. From where, Courtney? Where are you right now?
Chicago, but going to Bristol momentarily.
Oh, wow. So will you not be in Kansas City then?
I will not. We usually don't travel to the third preseason game if it's away, but obviously starters playing kind of changes that. But I will be on NFL Live tomorrow and then going right into watching the game along with everyone else.
Very nice. That's a good thing. That's a great TV time as always. All right. So what do you make of the week? What were your headlines? Was it the extension? Was it the starters playing? Anything stand out to you from practice? You tell us what was the number one thing in your week for the Bears this week.
Well, since it's a truncated week, I mean, usually you don't play a Friday preseason game after playing on Sunday night. The scheduling folks did not do them any favors with that. You know, the practice we saw yesterday was the most important day to be out there. And I think coming off of the game, when it looks like things are clicking, when Caleb Williams and the offense score on that 92-yard drive and overcome, you know, a bad start with field position, overcome a penalty, and he looks crisp, calm, hitting his targets, going through his progressions, going through his reads. Like, all the operation stuff in what Ben Johnson said, the 3 days of practice, the game, that was the cleanest stretch that we saw during training camp. So I think it's the carryover effect. You did that against backups. That's what it was. Can you do it against the starting defense for the Kansas City Chiefs? Can it look as clean as it did on Sunday, tomorrow night? And that, for me, is where my eyes go, because we're seeing how the personnel is getting mixed in. We saw a healthy dose of run and pass. We saw the 12 personnel, you know, really take shape with Cole Kmet, with Colston Loveland in that game. I want to see 2 weeks in a row of that, 2 games in a row of that, because that's what, like, when they talk about we don't know our identity yet on offense, the early indications are what you saw against Buffalo. And yeah, they're not, you know, game planning, scheming for, you know, based off of Buffalo's tendencies, but that's showing you who they are. And I think that that's important as we get closer to the opener of what type of attack they're going to be able to display while they're still getting comfortable in this offense.
Understanding that maybe your perception will change after seeing what they do on Friday. But Courtney, to this point, based on what you felt about this team and maybe some questions or however you felt about them before camp started to right now, how would you say your feelings about this team have changed? Have they remained the same?
They've definitely, like, as Caleb's gotten more comfortable in the offense and you've seen some good days in a row, I think that my thought about this team is it's coming along, but there's still things that they need to work on. Like, yesterday's practice was dominated by a lot of pre-snap penalties, some false starts. There were 2 delay of games, and it's the stuff that we heard from Ben Johnson, from Caleb Williams early on in training camp that they're still working through. That are, like, you know, there was a delay of game yesterday that was caused because they're breaking the huddle too late. Like, when they get out of the huddle and they're still, like, there's 9 seconds on the clock and the quarterback's trying to change the call with 2 seconds left and then can't do it, they get flagged. That, to me, is stuff that is like early July stuff for this Bears offense that shouldn't be popping up on August 20th. When it did, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, doesn't mean it's going to happen routinely, but, you know, there's still moments where the operation is not as crisp as it's going to be. And knowing that now, it kind of reflects on what Ben Johnson has said. He said it yesterday. They don't expect to be playing I know it's cliche, but, like, they don't expect to be playing their best football until December, January. I get that. Every coach is going to say that. But I would say the truth in there is that September might look a little bit like a continuation of some of the errors that we saw in training camp. And that's not a bad thing if it's not killing drives, if it's something that they can rebound from, if you see drives that look like they did in the opening, the opening series against Buffalo. But I still think that there are, like, it's just really showing and highlighting the nature of how complicated this offense is, that there's still some of those things that keep popping up with the starting offense as they're, you know, this 4 or 5, 6 weeks into camp.
Courtney, a lot of our show yesterday and even the day before, but mainly yesterday, was dominated by the talk of Micah Parsons. And, you know, you'll be there in NFL Live. Like, the Cowboys get a ton of pub. Jerry Jones loves getting the ton of pub. So do you believe that this is something that will be different than the other guys that they've signed and he could become available? And if so, would Ryan Poles be interested?
I don't think he becomes available, but I don't think he plays the opener. I think this is something, Jerry always loves to talk about history and beating his chest about the Super Bowls that they won when I was, 3, 4, and 5 years old. The Emmitt Smith situation, when he likes to tout that and say, well, Emmitt sat out those 2 games and they lost and they got him back. Well, what did they do the year before that? They won a Super Bowl. So, that's not the case now, but I do think that this situation that they're facing is so dire, and you hear Adam Schefter talk about it, saying it feels like they're headed for a divorce. I can't see Jerry, with his ego in mind here, letting that divorce happen, because they can franchise tag him, not once but twice. I mean, it gets to like DEFCON level 1 if you do that, which is why I think he'll miss the opener. They will lose the opener. They'll probably miss week 2. If it gets to the point of missing week 3 when Eberflus and this defense have to go back to Chicago, maybe there's a wake-up call by that point. But I think they're going to have to lose a couple games to see what this defense lacks, because we've seen it here in Chicago. We know what the pressure rate was. We know how they get after quarterbacks. If you don't have your best down lineman there to do that, that's going to kill your defense. So maybe Jerry needs to visualize it, to know the importance of the player, to understand the leverage that Micah has over, straight up the skill on this defense. But I don't see a scenario, like, ego is one thing, but I can't see like that truly getting in the way of costing them, a whole season of games by not having him there. I don't think it will get to the point where other teams are able to, actually bid their services on Micah Parsons, because we haven't heard about a single team that has levied a realistic trade offer yet. And I think everybody else sees it the way that we do, that it'll eventually get done, not probably withstanding some more drama that they have to go through unnecessarily, but I don't think it gets to the point where Ryan Poles can make that call and go trade however many first and second for Micah Parsons.
Is there a guy out there that could become available that you do think Ryan Poles would be interested in, whether it be another offensive lineman, which very rarely become available this time of year if they're any good, or an edge? Do you think there's a move that Poles could make here that would surprise some of us?
Well, it would surprise me if it was for Micah Parsons, Trey Hendrickson, for a multitude of reasons, because they're not an edge rusher away from being a Super Bowl contender. Would that make their defense fantastic, great, whatever other adjective you want to levy there? Sure. But I don't think they're in the position to do that yet. And I know there's been some mixed reviews about Dio Odangbo, like in what he's brought in training camp. Certainly there have been days where he's made Braxton Jones not look so good. So there's good, and then there's, also, is this the right upgrade opposite Montez Sweat? But outside of that, I don't think that with the cost and what it would take to give up. We're hearing that the Bengals want players in return, and you're going to be giving Trey Hendrickson a contract, and they want a high draft pick. The price is so unrealistic because they want to keep him there. That's their leverage on that situation, and I don't see it with Micah Parsons. I don't believe that there is another player that currently is unhappy in his team, his situation, that could ultimately find his way to Chicago. Now, the cuts get interesting because usually when guys get cut, the cap casualties would have already happened by now. So you would have known who was, a high quality potential starter being available far sooner than August 26th on cutdown day. But this is where your scouting department, where your college scouting guys, the guys who are looking at, rookies who might be able to, be high-end depth for you. That's where you make your hay on cut down day. If you can add off somebody else's roster, if you can put in a waiver claim for somebody, it typically doesn't happen. They did it a couple years ago with Alex Leatherwood. It did not work out. But I don't think there's a natural, this guy should be a Chicago Bear. The Bears should be working on this or trying to put a claim in for anybody that's out there right now.
What does the situation look like at both running back and cornerback for this team right now, Courtney?
It's thin. There were 3 running backs yesterday at practice. No Kyle Monungai, no Roschon Johnson. Obviously, Deion Hankins is on injured reserve. Royce Freeman, the guy who just got there yesterday, was one of 3 running backs practicing. And, it's a good opportunity for the 3 that are up there, Ian Wheeler included, to practice, to get a chance to shine in that game. But I think this running back room was cut down a couple of weeks ago. I think they keep 4. I think it's between Swift, Roschon Johnson, Kyle Monangai, and Travis Homer. And I know that that's not an answer a lot of people want to hear. They want to hear that Ian Wheeler will have usurped people on the depth chart. They want to hear names that aren't just what they've had. I don't think the Bears are going to go that route. I think they keep 4. I think Monangai has had a really good camp and will be in contention for that number 2 role. Before he got hurt last Friday when he left the Buffalo practice early, he looked like he was going to be the number 2 right behind DeAndre Swift because Roschon Johnson's missed some time with injuries. So I think that's what they roll with. Now maybe they pick up another back off of cuts next week, but I don't think the running back room in terms of personnel, in terms of outlook, has changed pretty much at all since they went into training camp.
Do you think, and I know, Waddle asked too about the DBs. I want to get into that, but do you think that there's a shot where Roschon is the odd man out? You mentioned those 4 and that you like their chances, but since he's been out and Ben Johnson hasn't seen a lot of him since early in camp, do you think there's a chance that, hey, we'd rather go with the upside of Wheeler and not let another team sign him and risk going to the practice squad and cutting Roschon Johnson?
Well, neither of those guys were Ben Johnson picks. Those guys had been there before Ben got to Chicago, and I think if you want to read between the lines of what he said last week, and he leaves Roschon Johnson's name out of the running backs, could you envision a scenario? Sure. The way that the Bears have talked about him over the last couple of years, I feel like Ryan Poles is going to fight tooth and nail to keep him on the roster if it were to come down to that. But what I see more than anything else, and you can keep him on the roster. He might not have his role that he had last year, but you can keep him on the roster. Kyle Monangai, the word trust, Ben Johnson has at multiple points talked about the rookies, that they don't have the trust yet. He said it when he was asked about the pass catchers that he trusts, and it's simply based on the fact that Burden and Loveland have not played a lot yet. He used that word trust for Kyle Monangai about a week and a half ago. Said, I think he's somebody we can trust this fall. So I hear that. I think that that's running back number 2, right behind DeAndre Swift. I really do. And I think that the injury, unfortunately for Roschon Johnson, has knocked him out for a couple of weeks. I think that's assuming Kyle Monangai doesn't have anything too serious, might have just been a precautionary thing to keep him out because we haven't heard about it. I think that's a prime opportunity for him to take that spot this season.
When the cuts are made, what do you expect the wide receiver room to look like, Courtney?
I expect them to keep 5, and I think that Devin Duvernay is the last one on there. The obvious 4, Moore, Adunze, Zacchaeus, and Burden. And then I think they go 5 because I think they load up. They obviously they need 10 offensive linemen, 10 defensive linemen, tackles, edges, all of that included. I don't think anybody else has stood out to a point where you get a spot on the 53. Duvernay, by the way, he's been a returner. I get that. Don't sleep on him as a receiver. Watching him run his routes out of the slot the last couple of practices, he provides some depth there, which I think is good. But Tyler Scott, I do not believe makes it. I know a lot of people want to know about Jade Walker from Texas A&M. I think practice squad for him. I think practice squad. I mean, he hasn't gotten any reps with the 1s, so are you expecting him to jump from the 3s to the active roster? I don't think so. But he's, I think that he's a prime practice squad candidate, and I think that 5 is a solid number for them to go there because of where they are trying to load up at some other positions.
All right, and then as we were talking about the DBs, what do we know about some of them? We know Terrell Smith is out for the year, but
he has a knee injury.
So if you were to guess right now, will Gordon be back? Will Jalen Johnson be back on opening day? And what else could they do at that position?
So, losing Sean Wade went on injured reserve ahead of he wasn't waived. He went on IR. So that's somebody that they want to keep around. Season-ending IR, Terrell Smith, season-ending IR. That's depth that they lack now. But Kyler was out there yesterday. He didn't do a whole ton. He's recovering from the hamstring injury. But that was a good sign to see him. Jalen and the way that he moved during that extended pregame warm-up that he did last week, that's a good sign for week 1. I think with your starters, you'll have those guys there, assuming next week you see Kyler Gordon continue to be out there. Now, will he play with the starters tomorrow night? Probably not, because he has 1 practice under his belt. But keep an eye on that position specifically, because Josh Blackwell has not been practicing this week. So, like, the nickel depth, like a guy like Nick McLeod might make his way onto the roster for that reason alone, because you don't have your backup slot corner. But I do think it's trending in the right direction with Jalen. Like, he's been in good spirits. The times that I've seen him in the locker room when we've been at Soldier Field, and certainly last week was a good indicator. What's interesting, though, and I don't know if this kind of fell off the radar yesterday because there was so much. Dave Frazier was at practice. Like, we have not, I had not laid eyes on him since rookie minicamp. I saw him. He was in a jersey. He walked back inside of, like, the weight room area. That's interesting, because there was never any indication that he did or did not report. Usually, like, if a guy does not report, that does not count for a roster spot. Like, you wouldn't have to, like, carry him on the 53. You could designate him there. So we know he's there. He's in the building. What they do with their fifth rounder, because they've been very hush-hush on this thing. It's a personal issue. That's what they're leaving it at. I'm very curious to see, do they feel he's talent? Like, whatever is going on elsewhere, obviously he's taking precedence here. But, like, do they try to sneak him onto the practice squad by keeping him on the roster at first and then waiving him and placing him there? Like, that one is such a mystery to all of us covering the team right now. But it was, I guess a sign of good things that we actually saw him yesterday for the first time since May.
And real quick, good moment up there yesterday with Tyson Bagent speaking about his contract extension.
How cool was that?
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, I remember, he gets here, and that year when there's PJ Walker, who they got from Carolina, and they paid him $5 million to be here, and then he gets cut before cuts came out. Like, he got cut the Sunday night before, and to see Tyson, go through this journey where it is so improbable to be a Division II NFL quarterback, and then he starts that game against the Raiders, first Bears quarterback, I believe, in over a decade. 15, 16 years to win in his debut until then Caleb did it this past fall against Tennessee. Like, it could not have happened to a better person. And that video that's going around when he's talking about, like, the life-changing wealth that he earned, he earned that. He earned every bit of that. Like, that raw emotion is so cool, because he is such a real dude. And I've enjoyed getting to know him. I've enjoyed getting to cover him. And I think it really speaks volumes to the Bears that they did this now. They didn't have to. He was going to be a restricted free agent. Most times with an undrafted quarterback, you're going to wait. Most times with any undrafted player, like, going into the final year, like, they don't usually do these early. So I just thought it was awesome. And, you couldn't it couldn't have happened to, like, a better human being. And it's very clear that the coaching staff sees a role for him here. And, Ben wasn't just blowing smoke yesterday when he said, yeah, I think he does have starter potential. Like, if all goes according to plan, he will not see the field at all this year. But to know that you have a backup quarterback you can trust to run your offense, and he's looked pretty efficient when doing it, that's a good thing for Tyson and for the Bears.
Courtney, before we let you go, you always like to give us some behind-the-scenes details, and Joniak always jokes with me that I'm always observing. I'm all, like, sightseeing. One of my big sightseeings this entire training camp is I've been in multiple press conferences, because now I enjoy listening to the coach speak, and last year I didn't go to the coach's press conference. Like, I want to know your nickname for around that group of media, because you keep everyone in check. I'm trying to think, like, it's like Sarah Spain used to be known as the commissioner for the Levitard show. Do you have, like, that is your media room. You keep everyone in check. So do you have a nickname?
Well, I got one unofficially last week from someone in the team texted me after I had to, like, I was sitting in between Leisure and Finley, and they both start going at it, and went, like, I wouldn't say I snapped in that moment. It's kind of like the common sense. You guys are on the same team, like, same outlet. And I got a text being like, "Crash Out Courtney" was in full effect this morning. And it's true, because I don't know. Like, sometimes I black out in those moments. And I didn't mean it in a malicious way by any stretch, but it's like, guys, same team. Like, don't, like, you're hurting each other by talking over each other in these moments. And I'm sure Ben thinks we're all nuts. But, like, that's what happens when you're in a beat like this, when there's 30 people there on a given day and you're all yelling over each other. So I guess That's my unofficial one that was bestowed on me last week.
Let's just call her the adult. She's the adult in the room.
Or COC. We could for sure just crash out Courtney. It was so funny because I witnessed it. I was watching it. Leisure was trying to get a question. Finley was trying to get a question. Courtney then goes, same outlet. And then after Leisure won that battle, Finley thought he was next then because Leisure was all over him.
Courtney wasn't having it.
Courtney went right in to get the last question in. And an important one saying, how long will the starters play? So, COC.
How long will they play Friday, by the way?
Ben, and his usual, to be determined. That's what he gave us. I mean, Chiefs haven't said either as far as like Patrick Mahomes and the starters, but I imagine they will mirror each other. I don't think. I mean, the third preseason game is usually determining your final special teams players and practice squad. But I would imagine it'll probably be more of the same. 1 or 2 drives for the starters, and then they'll get out of there.
Courtney, great stuff. We always appreciate you. Enjoy Bristol. We'll be watching, all right?
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Courtney.
We'll have that on tomorrow as we get into pregame mode for Bears and